I understand. I understand. Okay. All right, it is now 6 o'clock. Everybody ready? Feeling good? All right, Billy, let's do it. All right, well, hello and welcome to the July Macomb Park Board of Commissioners meeting. And as always, we will start with the approval of the agenda.
Would like
Is-
to move to approve.
All right, it's been moved. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? And the agenda stands approved. Consideration of and action on the minutes from June. Are there any corrections, additions, or deletions? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? And the minutes stand approved. Bills and transfers and monthly financial statements. Commissioner Ham.
Okay, thank you. For June 2022, I'm reporting basically how we're doing based on the budget that we have approved for the month and year to date. Our consolidated fund, our cash on the hand at the end of the month is $507,371. Our revenues for June were $84,879 above the budget. Our expenses were $26,567 less than the budget. So we ended the month actually $111,447 better than the expectations. And for the year to date, we're at $155,910 better than the budget amounts. For general fund, we ended June with $598,685. Revenues ended the month $70,451 better than budget. Expenses for the month ran $4,060 less than budget. So overall, we ended the month $74,511 better than budget. In the year, we are $203,883 better than the budget projections. For corporate, June ended $26,160 more than the budget revenues. The expenses ran $8,980 more than budget, so we ended the month $17,180 ahead of the budget projections. Year to date, we are $107,678 better than the budget. Recreation, overall, we ended the month $19,576 better than the budget and $43,350 for the year. Lakeview, overall for the month, we ended $432 better for the budget, and we're $2,595 ahead so far this year. Ball 4, overall, ended $980 below budget for the month, and the year is running at $4,407 better than budget. Special Rec ended the month $9,221 better than the budget expectations, and for year to date, we're at $18,012 better. For police counts, June ended $4,103 better than expected. Year to date is $4,634 better than the budget. Payroll, the wages ended the month $1,026 less than the budget. Year to date, we're $44,919 better than budget. I want to also note that we did, for the new year, received our first tax distribution on June 22nd for $591,172. That accounts for approximately 43% of what we're budgeting and expecting from. And I have heard that we are expected and had received some earlier this past week for July. So we'll report that next month
Great.
meeting, what we got.
Okay. All right, well, thanks, Russ. Any questions for Commissioner Ham? All right, thank you. Well, okay, if there's no questions, I guess I need to put a motion to approve bills and transfers and monthly financial statements. Is there a motion, I should say?
I'll make the motion to approve.
All right, is there a second?
Second?
All right, it's been moved and seconded. A roll call vote, please.
Commissioner White,
Oh, aye?
Commissioner Gamage,
Aye.
Commissioner Ham.
Aye.
All right, and the bills and transfers and monthly financial statements stand approved as published. Looks like we do not have anyone for the open public presentations for the commissioners. So we'll go into item number 5, which is a presentation and review of the 2021 annual audit from I always mess it up, Sikich, with discussion and action possible. So please welcome Chad Lucas to the podium. Thanks, Chad.
All right. Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to work with the district again this year. And I'd like to thank Chris and Rachel for all their help during the audit process. Nick Bava was the senior manager on our engagement this year, and so I appreciate, he did a lot of the heavy lifting on the audit, and I appreciate all your help with him. So a couple documents that I'll go through with you. First is the annual financial report. That's the larger document that you have, and this is for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2021. This is still reported on a cash basis. I think that we had a discussion about this last year. I believe you keep some of your internal records on an accrual basis and then convert to accrual or to cash at the end of the year for financial reporting purposes. So maybe something for a future discussion about trying to make that so you're consistent between your internal and your external reporting. The first few pages are the management's discussion and analysis. This is written by management, and it's got some comparative information last year versus this year and some discussion about that. Again, it's written by management, and that's MDA 1 through 6. And then right after that is the independent auditor's report. And there was some slight changes to the independent auditor's report this year. And I'll just kind of quickly go through those. There's a little bit more detail in terms of responsibilities and some of the information about what those responsibilities are between both the auditors and management. So on page 1, again, we've audited our first couple paragraphs. There is our opinions on all the opinion units. We give an opinion on the governmental activities, each major fund, and then the aggregate remaining fund information on the cash basis. Our opinion is unmodified, which means that based on our audit procedures, we believe that the financial information presented here is accurate, is reasonably accurate. We did have some adjusting journal entries during the process, which we'll go through in the other document, but after those adjustments, we believe that this information is accurate. The second paragraph there is a basis for our opinion, just goes through discusses there's references to our audit responsibilities in the paragraphs following on the next page. The basis for accounting, we did draw your attention to note 1 in the financial statements, just discusses that you do report on a cash basis. So it's not considered generally accepted accounting principles. GAAP is if you would report on a modified accrual basis, and so you don't report on that, so these are not in accordance with GAAP, these financial statements. At the top of page 2 is the responsibilities of management. Just kind of goes through what your responsibilities are, what management's responsibilities are for these financial statements, and that they take responsibility for those. We do receive a representation letter that is signed by management indicating that everything that they provided to us is accurate and the information that we audited was accurate. Then it kind of goes through the next section in the auditor's responsibilities, and there's a few bullet points there that just talks about some specifics with respect to our responsibilities and our professional skepticism, and that we have to perform a risk assessment. You should have received during the audit process both the engagement letter as well as the risks that were identified during the audit process. So we sent that in an email to those charged with governance. And then on page 3, there's just some information about the other information. And so we don't give our opinion on the management's discussion and analysis that is included that's written by management, nor do we give our opinion on, there's some supplementary information in the back, some trend information for your IMRF funding and your net pension liability at IMRF. We don't give our opinion on that information, but we present it in the financial statements and make sure that it agrees with the information in the audited financial statements. Then after that is the basic financial statements. Pages 4 and 5 are what we call the government-wide financial statements. This just shows a single column for your governmental activities. You don't have any business-type activities. A lot of municipalities and other general governments have both governmental activities and business-type activities. You only have governmental activities. So this is just a consolidated statement. It shows that in total, you have approximately $958,000 in cash and investments as of 12/31. There's no liabilities. You don't report any accrual-related liabilities. And so then those assets are made up of net position, some of which is restricted. And those restrictions are the result of your property tax levies that have specific restrictions on those. On page 5 then is the statement of activities. Again, this is the consolidated for the district as a whole. This is kind of an unusual presentation in that if you read from left to right, it starts with expenses for each of the different government activities: general government, public safety, culture and recreation, and debt service. And then as you read across, you can see that there's program revenues that's made up of charges for services, some operating grants, and then capital grants. And so the intent of this is to show that once you get to the right-hand side, you can see all those numbers in brackets, is that that your expenses aren't covered by your non-tax revenues. All those other revenues, those are grant revenues, charges for services. So you have a deficit of $2,074,000 of expenses related to those non-tax revenues. Then as you read down, you can see that those general revenues include taxes, which are property taxes, replacement taxes, some other donations, miscellaneous, and some debt proceeds. So your change in net position as a whole for the government was a positive increase of $107,000. Then on page 6 and 7 are the actual fund financial statements. And this presentation is we list 4 major funds, what we consider major funds, and there's some criteria that determine what's considered major. The general fund, the recreation fund, debt service fund, and capital projects fund are all considered major. Then we have another column there that lists the non-major governmental funds. And there's a summary schedule in the back of those non-major funds that we'll go through in a second. Again, the page 6 is probably what we would call a balance sheet. In the for-profit world, it's your assets less your liabilities equal your net position or your fund balance. The general fund had $473,830 in total assets. That does include a loan from the general fund to the recreation fund of $75,000. So you can see there that there's a $75,000 due from other funds and a $75,000 due to in the recreation fund. And so at the bottom there, you can see that it lists out all of your fund balances. Again, those restrictions in the general fund are made up of the property tax levies that are specific for those purposes. And then you also have, in your budget for 2022, you have budgeted to use some of that fund balance for next year's expenses. And the net amount of that is about $208,000 of the 2021 fund balance for next year. So if you turn over to page 7, then this is just your statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in fund balance on a cash basis. The revenues are at the top. That includes the property taxes, replacement taxes. One thing to note here, intergovernmental and your capital projects fund, you have those are your grants that you received, And so you did have a pretty large grant from Decchio this year for the Patton Park project. And so there's a total of 265, but I think there's about 250-ish, 248,000 of that was that one specific grant that you received. Then you have all your expenditures listed, and you have your bond proceeds. So if you look kind of third line from the bottom, you can see your net change in fund balance. The general fund was a positive 93,000. The recreation fund had a negative 22,517. The debt service fund was a wash. The property taxes paid for the debt service payments. Capital projects was a positive 34,000, and your total non-governmental was a positive 2,700. So again, in total, it was 107,711 was the total for all the funds. After that, the notes to the financial statements. I won't go through these in detail unless you'd like me to. These have all your significant accounting policies is in footnote 1. There's some detail about your deposits and investments in footnote 2. Note 3 is information about your long-term debt, all of your the debt at the beginning of the year, issuances, retirements, the balances at the end of the year. Note 4, we don't report your net pension liability for IMRF since you're a cash basis, but we do disclose the information relating to your IMRF balances. And if you turn over to page 17, page 17 shows just a summary of the activity from the beginning of the year till the end of the year. And you can see at IMRF, the balances, the top part there, at January 1st, 2021, your actuarial accrued liability, total pension liability was $3,088,000. The assets, the planned fiduciary net position on hand at IMRF at the beginning of the year was $2.7 million. So the difference between those two is you had a net pension liability at the beginning of the year of $324. If you go down to the bottom, you can see that has shrunk to $62,880. That's primarily due to the investment income at IMRF, and this is as of 12/31/21. That has changed since the end of the year. But you can see there that there was a net investment income of about $485,000, which wiped out all of the expenses that related to it. So one other thing I always like to point out is if you turn back to page 16, so IMRF uses some actuarial assumptions to determine this actuary liability, and they use a discount rate to determine that liability. They use the discount rate of 7.25%, but this shows some sensitivity of that discount rate. So this just shows you if they were to have used 8.25%, what the effect of what it would be on your net pension liability, and if they would have used 6.25. So just shows you kind of a summary of the estimate and how it would be affected by any change in that assumption that they used. Note 5 then on page 19 discusses your other post-employment benefits. So again, you don't report anything, but there's some note disclosures regarding post-retiree health insurance. Interfund activity, we just show that there was a $75,000 loan between the two funds. Note 7 just discusses your risk management and that you've got commercial insurance coverage to cover those risks. And that is the last page, the last note for the notes to the financial statements. After that, starting on page 20, is budget versus actual information for each of the funds. And just shows you, the first column shows you do have an appropriation amount that's different from the internal budget that you use. So we just disclose both of those items in this budget versus actual statement. But we compare the actual versus the budget that you're using, that you referenced earlier in the meeting. Something new that we added this year, after we had a discussion with Rachel and Chris, is that on page 24, the general fund is made up of all of these multiple sub-funds. So in your internal financial statements, you have a sub-fund basically for each of the property tax levies that you have. And so we just included this schedule this year to show you what each of those amounts were for in those sub-funds. And the total amount and the total columns there, they agree to what we've already been, what we reviewed in the front statement for the general fund. But corporate sub-fund, unemployment, liability, workers' comp, audit, IMRF, Social Security. So each of those are listed in pages 24 and 25, both the balance sheet and the income statement. And then the last 2 pages of, before we get to the summary, but page 26 and 27, these are the non-major funds that I discussed earlier. Again, the same thing. You have these 3 funds that are considered non-major for reporting purposes. So we just summarize all those in this summary schedule in the back. The totals agree to the non-major column in the front. Page 28 just discusses some information about your budget. And then pages 29 and 30 are those supplemental schedules relating to IMRF that I mentioned before. And there's 7 years presented right now, but eventually this will be like a 10 years worth of trend information. So you'll be able to see like 10 years of historical information related to your IMRF. Contributions is on page 9 or 29. Those are the contributions over the last 7 years that you've made to IMRF. And then page 30 is the net pension schedule of changes in employers' net pension liability and related ratios. And so the 2021 column is what I showed you in that note that we just went through about the changes. You'll see kind of at the very last double underlined in the 2021 column was that $62,880 is your net pension liability at 12/31/21. So you can kind of see there over the last, since 2018, your net pension liability IMRF was $682,000. That's gone down to $421 to $324, $62. That's primarily market driven. The investments at IMRF did very well over the last 4 years. So that's kind of a quick summary of the financial statements. I'd be happy to try and answer any questions that you have on those.
Do either of you have any questions?
Quite yet.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in.
We'll be able to review this and be able to submit any questions at a future time.
Yep.
Correct.
Yeah. And the other item that I'll quickly go through is the auditor's communication to the Board of Trustees and management. Page 1 is just a cover letter. Page 2 is 2, 3, and 4 is some required communications that we have to provide to those charged with governance. Page 2 just kind of discusses some significant audit activity and findings, I guess. There were no new policies implemented during this year. There were some estimates that we reviewed relating to, as I mentioned, the net pension liability calculations that IMRF provided to you. If you turn to page 3, no difficulties encountered in performing the audit. We did have some adjustments, some corrected and uncorrected misstatements, and so we note there that a few of the adjustments were considered material to the financial statements. So we do have a repeat finding from last year based on those material audit adjustments. No disagreements with management. As I mentioned before, we did get a representation letter from management indicating that information provided to us was accurate. To our knowledge, there were no other consultation with other accountants or auditors. And then we've discussed the findings that we'll go through here in a minute with management and reviewed those during our audit process. Other matters, we just indicate here that there was some supplementary information, which those IMRF schedules that we went through that we don't give our opinion on, nor do we give our opinion on the management's discussion and analysis. Pages 5 and 6 then there were 5 adjusting journal entries that we proposed, and 2 through 5, 2, 3, 4, and 5 were all considered material to the financial statements. So I think these were similar to the adjustments that we had last year as well. But so we made those adjustments. There were an adjustment that we didn't make. There was a payroll fund cash account that was understated. And we had this issue last year as well. But we noted that it was understated in the records. And then page 9 is our communications of deficiencies in internal control and other management comments. So this is what we call our management letter, basically. Page 9 is just 9 and 10 is just a letter indicating, defining what a material weakness in internal control is and a significant deficiency in internal control. So it just kind of goes through the definitions. And it indicates that we did actually have some significant deficiencies in internal control that we'll go through. The bottom paragraph there just refers to the fact that we reviewed the prior year comments, and we do have those comments in Appendix A. And really, that is the only thing that we have this year. So the comments that we had last year were all repeated again this year. And before I get to that, pages 11, 12, and 13 list some future accounting pronouncements. And so we do always include those accounting pronouncements and their effective dates. So there's a few that are going to be effective for next year. I'm not sure to the extent which it will impact your financial statements because you do report on a cash basis. GASB 87 is related to leases, and leases is a pretty big implementation project. It does apply to accrual-based financial statements, though. So there may be some disclosures related to this that might affect you for any potential leases that you have, but I don't expect any of these to be a significant implementation effect for your financials for 2022. So if you turn to page 14 then, which is Appendix A, this just lists all of the comments. We didn't repeat the same comments from last year. We just left them in Appendix A and we indicated what the status of each comment was based on our review during this audit process. So the first one is related to segregation of duties, and I will say that you can see in some of these status comments when we reviewed these with management, there were some things that were implemented. I think there was an ordinance passed regarding regulating financial controls. It didn't actually happen until January of 22. So during the audit period, all these things were still applicable. First one is on segregation of duties. So the business manager has a lot of responsibilities and reconciles bank statements and all those things. And so this segregation of duties, 1 and 2, are both considered significant deficiencies in internal controls. They're kind of at a higher level than the rest of the items that we have listed here. So we always recommend that you segregate duties whenever possible. One person shouldn't be doing everything without some proper controls. So I think that you've tried to address that in some of your the policy that you passed earlier this year. Journal entries, again, same thing. During our review, they weren't being reviewed by anyone other than the person making them. So we recommend that everything be reviewed and approved by somebody else. Number 3 just is regarding security cameras. And, I always say that a lot of these are things that we recommend. We understand that you have a risk, a cost-benefit analysis that you have to do for implementing a lot of the things that we suggest. But so just we noted that there's a safe in which deposits were held until they're taken to the bank, didn't have a security camera directed towards it, just something to consider. Number 4 is documentation of invoices. Just recommend documenting information about the process for when the invoice is paid, what the classifications for any invoices are, review and approval, which fund it should be in, all those things. Just some suggestions. Looks like that your regulating financial controls is trying to address that. Couple items on credit cards. Again, business manager pays credit card bills, reviews the statements, but no one reviews the statement of the business manager. The next couple items are actually policy-related things, credit card policy and debt policy, so we just suggest you reduce those policies to writing. Top of page 16, same thing with the purchasing policy. I think that your regulating financial controls is trying to address that item. Number 9 is a chart of accounts. I've mentioned this before about accrual internal statements versus cash external statements. We would just recommend that you provide some, make it easier to provide some comparability between both internal and external. And then the last one is the investment policy. We noted there's some things about that weren't specifically addressed, some various risks that weren't addressed in your policy, and so we would recommend that you address those. That was it.
I just want to make sure I got clarification on the comment still applicable as of December 31st, 2021. So you reported that these deficiencies were still needed to be addressed in comments and worked on. But for the last 6 months, I want to make sure that, and I think I had some discussion with the director and our office manager that a lot of these changes have been made. It wouldn't be reflected in this report, correct?
Correct.
I just want to make sure for the public that they know that the last 6 months that we have moved forward on a lot of these issues that had been pointed out by your company. We appreciate that.
Yeah, it wouldn't be reflected in this other than the discussion in the status section where we refer to the ordinance that you did pass in January.
Okay, thank you.
But we didn't actually test the things that you did in 2022. We were looking at stuff in 2021, so.
Right.
Very good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions for Mr. Lucas? Well, yes, go ahead. You good? Do we want to have time to look through this before we make a decision on passing the audit, or would you like to?
I would like to see that we have a little bit more of a quorum. I mean, we have a quorum to
Sure.
to run the business of it, but I would like to also get the comments and see if there's any issues that come up. I have to kind of mull over these because
Sure.
they were just handed. I
Sure.
want to see if there's any changes that have been from the draft part that I read before. So I would like to look at it a little bit closer before totally approving it. And maybe
Sure.
get the input
So
of
with that,
other
is there
people
a
before.
motion to add this to our agenda for next month
You wouldn't,
for approval?
you wouldn't necessarily need a
Oh, I'm
motion.
I'm sorry, Rachel.
I said you wouldn't necessarily need a motion. You guys can just, by consensus, choose to table it until the August meeting.
All right.
I think if we could do that.
If
for
that's your
next week,
choice.
That would satisfy
Yeah,
my
great.
concerns.
Yeah.
and Just for further review, but,
Yeah.
appreciate it. Wouldn't necessarily have to have you here for further questions because we would be able to communicate any questions we have to you before our next monthly meeting.
Yep.
Okay, very good.
Chad, thank you so much for making, what is a 2.5 hour drive for us?
Hour and 45.
Hour 45? Oh, there you go. There you go. We really appreciate making the trip up.
Sure.
So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you very much. Okay. All right, so we are on agenda item number 6, the final project report presentation by Mr. Nathan Miner.
Hello, hello. Yeah, thank you guys for having me here in front of you and being able to present. Just a quick introduction. My name is Nathan Miner. I've been a summer intern with the McDonough County Special Rec Association, run by Julie Eggleston, for the past 7 weeks at this point. And part of my internship has also been a special project assigned to me, which is Nature's Fireworks. So before we begin, I'll just talk about the initial thoughts and process of how the event went, like the day of the actual event and how that was. I'll go over the activities that were involved and just some takeaways over the whole thing. So On the next slide, I have some initial thoughts in the process as well. So over the course of sort of the end of June and most of July, I had meetings with Julie Eggleston and Natalie Shelley, usually every couple weeks, talking about the event, getting myself acquainted with it, and also kind of giving me the reins over a portion of the event that is now called Campfire Corner. So that's kind of the event activity that I ran. And a lot of those meetings were spent kind of figuring out what I could provide for Campfire Corner, some updates that could be available with the actual event area, as well as getting to talk about who else can be involved. So we have Lily, our other intern with the Macomb Park District, running the MPD tent, as well as some outdoor games. We had Natalie Shelley running the Illuminated Trail, as well as the Lakeview Nature Center educational facility. And we had Julie Elgiston running the Egg Shaker Creation table as well, which I'll get into in a little bit. So the actual day of the event, we had about 80 to 100 attendees arrive over the whole course of the day, which ran from about 7:30 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. And prior to the event, Natalie and I went out there around 2:30 p.m. to start setup. So that gave us plenty of time to get things in order and get tables set up and just making sure everything is prim and proper for when people arrive. And we were able to make use of the brand new fire pit area, which we initially reached out to Jeff Hoyt to update that area. It was just a fairly run over, like grassy area with just like a pretty rudimentary area to put fire logs. So we had Jeff Hoyt just make a fantastic effort in updating that whole area. We had new Adirondack chairs installed and in place there basically the day before the event started. So he worked right up until the end to get that accomplished, which was super thankful. We had brand new gravel laid out and stamped flat so that anybody could enter the campfire area, including those who are disabled, anybody who really wants to be in that area. And the fire pit itself was fairly low risk. We want to make sure that it was attended, so both Julie and I were able to have a visual over the fire pit and making sure that no attendees were getting hurt. The fire pit itself was also submerged below the ground, so we really didn't have any issues with fires spilling over or anything of that sort. So that went very well. We had some amazing feedback from attendees who did arrive. There was one individual who is a librarian, whose acquaintances with Julie, who said she's going to take away a lot of the ideas that we had in the event and take them back to her library to kind of implement there. So that was some really awesome feedback we had from her. Towards the end of the day, the event setup and the teardown afterwards were very manageable. We had 4 people on deck with that day, so it was pretty straightforward. Okay, so on the next slide, we have our first kind of activity area, which was Natalie's Illuminated Trail and Lakeview Nature Center. So a couple pictures you see here. At the top picture, we have the actual inside of the Nature Center, where we had visuals and educational kind of platforms for what really is the theme of the event, which is nature's fireworks. That's fireflies. So we had a bunch of different educational modules for fireflies inside, and as well as, if you see the bottom picture, we had a storybook talking about fireflies, as well as other, Natalie set up some other signs and postages around the trail area to talk about fireflies, which that event went very well. We've talked about that event in the past with past years of Nature's Fireworks, and it's just done a great job with kind of reinforcing the whole theme of the event. So on the next slide, I have Julie Eggleston running the Shaker Creation Station. So we have an egg shaker table kind of organized. So kids, adults, anybody who wants to kind of come through and make an egg shaker. We had all of these multicolored eggs to provide. We had beads and different materials to put inside the eggs for people to make, and then they could take those eggs, bring them over to the campfire area you see there as well, and play to the music, which was provided by me. I had some live music going on my guitar and ukulele, and I also had a recorded set playlist on Spotify to kind of go along with that too. So they were able to play egg shakers with that, and it was really just a creative and enjoyable kind of area to be in. On the next slide, we have Lily running the Macomb Park District tent and outdoor games. So as you can see in the top picture, Lily is kind of talking to a lot of people about future events for the Macomb Park District, handing out free swag like cups and kites, I believe, and I can't remember what else. I think it was either bookmarks or stickers or whatever she had at that table. And on the bottom picture, you can see we had a few outdoor games as well. We had a whole area dedicated to bags or cornhole or whatever you call it regionally. And we also had a few other games. I think we had outdoor checkers. That was like a large, like life-size checkers game. And we also had a game that I can never remember the name of. It's the game that has, like you toss the stringed balls to the other, it's ladder toss. That's what it's called, ladder toss. So Lily did a great job with that event. And then on the next slide, we have my area, my activity area, the campfire corner. So this was an area for people to either just relax by the campfire, which is right next to us, especially when it was getting darker. A lot of people kind of shifted from the games and trail area to the campfire corner. So it became more popular as the night continued on. You can see me there with my guitar. I was, like I said, playing some live music. It was a playlist created in partnership between Natalie and I. A lot of just really fun nature music and music that brings people together overall. And with that activity area, Natalie and I kind of worked together to create a brochure for my activity. So just to show you guys really quick, this was made through Canva, which is a software format that I am still learning and overcoming, but it's a wonderful tool to use. So there's the front cover and the back cover, and what we included in this are some takeaway activities and recipes. So we have recipes like foil wraps. I included bread on a stick, so you don't have to like spend hours making bread. You can just make it within like 15 minutes over a campfire and just do that at home even. I also have grilled cheese sandwiches because who doesn't love a grilled cheese sandwich? And that's super easy and enjoyable to make over a campfire as well. The takeaway activities included the egg shakers. So not only did we provide that at the event, but we also provide instructions for how to do it when they go home as well. I also have activities like making a kaleidoscope, which runs with our theme of like the starry night, and also the glow-in-the-dark mason jar, which they can kind of mimic the illuminated trail when they go home. So that's kind of the thought process with that. And on the back, on one part of the brochure, I also included a link to the Spotify playlist, so they can take that home as well and listen to that music too. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that went really well. A lot of people took the brochures, and on my last slide on the presentation, I have some things to consider. So with the Canva software, it was definitely a bit of a fight. I was struggling with just how to place things, how to find creative images and themes that were connected throughout the entire pamphlet. So Natalie was a huge help in kind of formatting me with that software, and I'm definitely going to be using it in the future from now on. Another takeaway was that I had a portion of my activity where people had this huge Mad Libs kind of activity where they could interact with the words to put into the Mad Libs, and then I had a song, like a chord progression format, to kind of play along with the Mad Libs so they could sing with it and I can play with them. We never ended up getting to that because I think people were just so relaxed that they just didn't even see it, or the event itself was just so busy that we didn't get to it. So I would love to move that activity to either the summer camp that I'm with or another useful kind of format for that. And then my last takeaway would be to just create a survey of the attendees that arrived and to see if they're really using the take-home recipes and crafts that we included in the brochure. I would be really curious to see if they're, what they're doing, what they're bringing home and actually creating, if they're really just thinking about it or if they're actually making these things, recipes and crafts. So I would love to see that in the future if I have the power to do that. And that being said, this event went very well, and that's due to everybody who worked with me so well. I learned how to communicate really well with Julie and Lily and Natalie, and just creating this event to make it, what it should be and what it has been over the years. So I'm just thrilled with that, and I will move on to any questions you guys might have.
Man, that was awesome. Great presentation.
Thank you.
For
Yes,
sure, you nailed it.
yeah, absolutely.
Canva's
appreciate
tough, I've tried it.
Yeah, right. Yes.
So you're working camps right now, you said?
Yes, that's right.
So what's the plan after the summer?
Well, I've been talking to family and friends about that. I'm either steering towards getting some certifications. So I'm really interested in getting my Wilderness First Responders certification because I would love to get into some high-risk touring. So that would include whitewater rafting or rock climbing or any of the above. I would love to get into I would love to first get into kayaking or canoeing tours because I love being on the water. On the other side, I've been talking to Rock Loxley about AmeriCorps and Peace Corps because I'm very much interested in just serving communities around the world, and not just the United States, but in other countries too. Not sure where I would start between Peace Corps or AmeriCorps, but I have heard starting residential is a little easier in terms of going to Peace Corps overseas. So that's kind of my thought process right now. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So you've already graduated in May, is that right?
I walked in May, and I'll
and then-
graduate at the end in basically like August 5th is my last day, and I get my diploma halfway through August, basically.
All right. Well, congratulations.
Thanks, Phil. Yeah, I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
that's awesome.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate you guys having me.
No,
and-
fantastic job. This was great. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank
Yeah.
you.
You
Absolutely.
bet. And thanks for putting all this together. It's
Absolutely.
lovely.
This was a thrill, and it was a group effort overall. So
Yeah.
just happy to work with everybody.
That's great. Well, thank you so much, Nathan. Appreciate it. Yeah. Okay, we're going to move on to item number 7, the president's report. So first of all, I need to let the folks know we're kind of in it's a weird vibe. My vibe isn't the word. I don't know what we would. So we got Rachel's online on via Zoom, and we've got a couple folks that are out of town and some medical leave. So we're a little smaller tonight, but we're making it work. Thank goodness for technology. So anywho, I just wanted to quickly say I continue to be impressed with Director Lenz and her staff. The large number of events that have been happening all throughout Macomb is, in a word, impressive, right? And I know that Rachel's planning on saying more regarding all the events that have been happening and whatnot, and the future events. But I also wanted to publicly say congratulations to Rachel and all of the staff. For those that do not know, the Macomb Park District is the recipient of a $360,000 grant from the Illinois Department of Natural Resources, and that was as part of a $30.3 million OSLAD grant. So, and this grant's going to go towards the Patton Park project. So again, congratulations. Super excited to see all the continuation of all the improvements out at Patton Park. So that's what I have to say. So now we get to move on to digital director lens.
Well, thank you very much. I am also very grateful for technology and just the flexibility that it provides, especially being a non-voting member of the board. It allows me the chance to be on Zoom when I am out in restricted time frames. So thank you to Chris Frankhauser for sitting in as the assistant secretary and taking the notes for us so that there's somebody still there in official capacity, but he doesn't bear the burden of having to give the director's report. So still, thank you, Chris. Yeah, very, very excited. I'll go ahead and piggyback off of where Phil left off. Very excited, very thankful to the state, to Governor Pritzker, and to the staff of IDNR for reviewing a substantial document. And I will say, I threw myself a bit of a pity party after writing the grant application, but I cannot fathom having to review 50 of them. That's a lot of work, and I know IDNR, they have a lot on their plate already, so it is understandable that it took a little extra time. This originally, if you remember, was supposed to be released in March or April, and it was just released on Monday?
Something like
Monday,
that.
I believe. Well, last Monday, yeah, or Tuesday. So anyway, we just continue to thank them for their efforts and supports and all they do for the state in regard to all of our natural resources. But yeah, thrilled for the opportunity for this funding to be coming to Macomb. We are excited for whenever the paperwork may get sent to us. We are still on hold, so we cannot begin that project until we sign the official grant document. But I did receive our letter from Colleen Callahan. She's the director of IDNR, and so she sent everybody the official congratulation letter. So we should be receiving that paperwork here in the near future. Can you still hear me?
Yep.
Just
Yep.
making sure. So at the rate that this process has been going, I anticipate that we will use this fall for planning and ordering, seeing how the supply chain has been a little bit backed up as well. It's been taking somewhere up to 4 to 5 months for us to get large equipment. So again, I anticipate we will use this fall for planning and ordering, and then people will start to see construction in the early spring of 2023. That'll give us plenty of time to get everything well in order, so that, you know, Jeff has plenty to do this coming spring. The projects in this grant, we discussed at the last board meeting, but you know, the major ones are the multi-use trail, the meditative pods, the garden pods, the boardwalk and the accessible piers, fishing piers, several shade structures, lots of trees, several benches and other park amenities, basketball courts. So we're going to have a lot going on. I'm thrilled to say that this grant, because it's a matching grant, so for every dollar that we, as you're aware, we have to spend that same dollar. So this is actually a $720,000 project. And this grant will take us from a 5 to 7 year completion estimate to a 2 to 3 year completion estimate. So again, a huge win for Macomb. Just for those who aren't aware, I'd like to put it out there in the internet world or in the paper if Patrick so pleases. But the projects that were in this grant were already set in place 12 to 16 months ago when we first applied for the grant. So for those who saw the announcement and thought that was a great place to tell us all the things we should do with the money we received, we're not ignoring your requests. It is just already these projects were set in place. So I hope that those people who voiced an opinion also took the time to fill out a survey that we had going on, because that would have been the proper platform for you to voice your wants for the park district. And we want that. We want to hear your guys' opinions. Just this was already set in place when we applied for it. So there are plenty of other grants in the future. Please tell us for those future grants, your wants and desires, and we will work to make those happen. So speaking of surveys, a quick update on Campfire Concepts. The community survey closed on July 18th. We received just under 250 replies, well exceeding our goal of 200. So a huge shout out to everybody who helped share the survey. I know Emily Gamage did us a solid in sending it out to, I think, over 200 people on her unsuspecting special email list. So thank you for that. But for everybody who shared it on emails or Facebook or other platforms, we really, really appreciate it. And for those who took the time, we greatly appreciate it, and your voices are heard. We're excited to see that data come together. Jared will be joining us in August to share the results of that work that they've done so far, including the community survey, the stakeholder meetings, the workshop with the staff, and the park report cards. So I'm very looking forward to that. We did have a quick conversation with Jared and said, because of the amount of information that he will probably be presenting, if he could keep it to 10 to 15 minutes, his first guess was maybe 30. And I thought, ooh, you will probably lose all of us. Not that it's not interesting, but it's late. So anyway, we'll look forward to seeing Jared in August and seeing all of the work that Campfire Concepts has put together for us. Very quickly, for August, we have a lot going on still because it's the season. So we have several clay program opportunities happening, as well as nature education programs out at Lakeview Nature Area. Natalie Shelley has continued to put together a wealth of opportunities for people to get creative and get into nature. So I'd highly recommend people get engaged in that. They can go to our website, check out Facebook, either the Macomb Park District Facebook page or Lakeview Nature Area and Center. Next Randolph Street Rendezvous is happening on August 18th from 6:30 to 30 with the
Oh no. Well, we may have lost Rachel.
so we are.
Oh, there she's back.
Oh.
We lost you for a second
Uh-oh.
there. You were talking about Randolph Street Rendezvous.
Yes. Did you hear anything else?
No, why don't you,
Perfect.
who's performing?
So August 18th, 6:30 to 9:30, Matt Eckberg Band. And I gave a quick shout out to Mid-American National Bank for sponsoring that event. I believe this is their first sponsorship with us. So very excited to have them on board and to support this event. And that happens out at Glenwood Stone Shelter. Our next movie in the park is Encanto, which is, you will have songs stuck in your head for days, but a great flick. So August 26th, starting at 7:30-ish. As always, we thank our partners out at First Bankers Trust and Refreshment Services Pepsi for their continued support of this, I would say, one of the town favorites. So, and then finally for August, our Push for Parks partner for the month of August is, again, Brown to Fit Company. We're excited to have them back, and they came back with a vengeance. So for the month of August, every pair of men's and women's athletic shoes, so kids sizes are not included, for every pair of men's and women's athletic shoes, $5 will be donated, as well as $2 from every pair of Hey Dudes sold will support the Patton Project. So huge shout out to Brown Shoe Fit and their continued support of the Patton Project and being a Push for Parks partner. So y'all go out and get yourself some new kicks out of Brown Shoe Fit. And then last but not least, I just came up with that, by the way. I'm kind of proud of it.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to email that to him. Last, but certainly not least, I did not think I would be making this type of announcement so soon, but unfortunately, but fortunately for him, Superintendent Neil Armstrong has resigned from his post with the Macomb Park District after 5 years of being the superintendent and almost 11 years of service overall with the district. He's been given the opportunity to go back into the education field, which he is extremely passionate about, and working with young people who have had it harder lives, and giving them opportunities. So we are thrilled for him that he gets to go back into that field. This is a position that he gets to build and do a lot of good with. So we're thankful that, again, he gets to continue his passion, and also thankful that he's only a phone call if we need him. So I'm also incredibly grateful that I get to announce that Sir Rock Loxley, although completing his 2-year term with us through his graduate career at the end of July, he is agreeing to stay with us and serve as the interim superintendent of support services until I have more time to do a search. So it was very interesting how that all lined up. Rock has a lot of experience with policy writing and OSHA and security, and that man has a very strange resume. He used to be a police officer at one point in his career, so it all kind of lined up pretty well. And we're grateful that he and his wife and newborn are willing to stay along with us for a little bit longer.
Yes.
So.
Great. You got anything more there, Director Lenz?
No, that's it. I'll entertain any questions if anybody has them.
Any questions? Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Director Lenz.
Thank you.
And I'm glad you're starting to feel better and you got your
Thank
voice
you, me
back.
too.
That's nice. That's
It
nice.
helps.
All right. Moving on. Okay. So we're on to item number 9, open commissioner presentation and discussion of future agenda items. Do we have anything we would like to talk about? All right. So with that being said, is there a motion to adjourn?
Would like to move that we adjourn.
All right. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And we stand adjourned. Thank you all so much, and we'll see you next month.